You know what scared me even more than when Jehovah's Witness comes to your door?
We know you're in there. We heard you walking around.
I was just on my way out!
The number of comments I received like zizzes on my project video. This is very confusing. The project is far left aligned. You're far left. Why attack your own kind? Well, more importantly, Ziz, how are you writing YouTube comments from beyond the grave? And follow-up question, I've done a degree in international politics and spent 10 years of my life studying the field, and even I can't tell you what's left and right. So how did you, Ziz, in between shredding sessions, figure it out?
Because bro, it's easy. You just got brainwashed by your degree in international politics where all they talked about is gender.
For example, you would think that most people would regard the party that reduced trade tariffs in this country, set up superannuation and deregulated the banking system as being the right-wing party of Australia, but Labor did all that. The party the net consistently dubs
Communists. Yeah, I said it. The party that was set up in 1901 specifically to stop the spread of communism. Communists.
This guy definitely reads. You would also think that the party that spent the most in government by a mile had higher taxes than any government in modern history and initiated huge welfare programs like dividend imputation, private health insurance subsidies, and baby bonuses to be considered the left-wing party of Australia. But that was all the Liberals, the party that Twitter consistently dubs right-wing Nazis. Then again, Twitter also dubs me a right-wing Nazi, but in my case, fair enough. I write for neo-Nazi sites under the alias Gandalf Hitler.
Gandalf the Grey is dead. I'm Gandalf the White.
The world's leading white supremacist site, which even if I name it, I'll be attacked, so I'm just going to avoid that shit show. But in the last British election, they endorsed Jeremy Corbyn. So are they left-wing now?
Nah, Jeremy Corbyn cancels that swastika out. Centrists.
Is Adolf Hitler, who on attaining the position of Chancellor nationalised the German currency and imposed the world's strictest environmental protection laws, which some might argue are slightly more left-leaning policies than Waleed Ali saying,
"We have to stop making jokes about Donald Trump. He'll get the message from here in Australia. He knows who I am. We're a superpower of sorts."
Yeah, well, like I've always said, the only person in history that's more of an SJW cuck than Waleed Ali is Hitler.
And if you think Stalin was left-wing, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, author of arguably the most damning critique of Soviet Russia ever written,
The Gulag Archipelago,
begs to differ. He says there was nothing left or right-wing about Stalin, he was just a gangster. It was like if 50 Cent ran a country. So if the guy who spent 8 years in a Russian gulag doesn't consider Joseph Stalin left-wing, where do you get off saying that the project is far left because they don't like pickup artists?
Of course, in contrast to Alexander's work, the Gulag Archipelago, I've written my own masterwork. A YouTube comment, Alexander Solzhenitsyn.
Do you see what I'm getting at? Reading YouTube comments where people write, "You're a snowflake lefty," or "You're an alt-right Nazi," makes me wonder if I'm reading the script or waiting for Godot, because those terms are the definition of absurd. They are absolutely meaningless. It's like love. It means different things to different people. If you want to honestly look at politics, here's a frame that I think is slightly more useful than,
Are you a libtard? Yes or no?
Instead of asking whether or not a news source is left or right, ask yourself whether or not the news source is propagating policy that is in the interest of the general public, or if it's in the interest of big business.
That's pretty sneaky, man. You're avoiding the question. Are you a libtard? Answer it.
You don't live in America, mate. That insult doesn't translate very well to Australia. Here, these are libtards. Lol, you think the project supports the Liberal Party? What are you smoking and where can I get it? What I'm smoking, mate, is called MOE, Mountains of Evidence. Stay in school. When the Liberals cut penalty rates, which 680,000 of the poorest workers in the country rely on for rent, what was the project's position?
It's Labor's fault.
Yeah, the party that set up penalty rates in the first place was warning before the election that the Liberals were going to cut them, and ever since they were cut has been consistently fighting to reinstall them. That's who the project claims cut your penalty rates.
I know, it's such a twist. Just like my favourite book, New Idea.
What was the project's view on the Liberals slashing renewable energy funding in this country?
Both Labor and the Liberals are bad on renewables. Politicians, am I right?
Right. The Liberals, who are the worst government in the industrialised world when it comes to climate action, and the Labor Party, who ranked third best in the world on environmental management, are both bad on renewable energy. Cheers for killing my kids, Waleed. Or when the Liberals introduced Gonski 2.0 and the project invited an education expert on to explain the massive shift in education policy in 2 minutes.
Because you know what's more important than school funding? School bullies. 700 segments a week on that is not enough.
The expert was beginning to explain why the Liberals' version of Gonski is nothing but a con job, and guess what the panel diverted him onto?
Yeah, well, that's all well and good, but I think we're missing the major point of this massive gutting of funding to public schools, and that is that while discussing this in Parliament today, Pauline Hanson said something that was, well, a bit off towards kids with autism.
So according to the project, the major take-home point of the Liberals gutting 2/3 of Gonski funding and giving the remaining third mostly to private schools is that Pauline Hanson said something, and yet most people seem to think that the project is anti the Liberal Party. That show should be called
Tonight I'm covering
Scott John Morrison's
Cornhole.
And if that's still not enough evidence to sway you that the project supports the Liberal Party, what about the fact that in the last election they supported the Liberal Party? In their hashtag The Project Vote special, they gave 2 points to the Liberal Party and 1 to Labor. I mean, what more evidence do you need than a fucking literal tally board of their support of the Liberal Party to be convinced that they support the Liberal Party? I don't understand how you could objectively look at their coverage and conclude,
Project is completely funded by big business, almost invariably supports the party that is funded by big business, but they did support gay marriage once, so Marxism.
yeah, that's the impression I got after reading Das Kapital.
You know who'd really like a show that has 4 bourgeois millionaires on it fawning over a man who literally owns the means of production? Karl Marx.
So to the people who wrote,
Lol, you're worried about the project being too right-wing?
Jesus, and I thought Waleed Ali was smug. I'm not. I'm worried that there's huge swaths of the population that don't seem to understand the crystal clear, provable fact that multinational companies that profit from the destruction of the environment and your living standards run every major news outlet in the country, and they arbitrarily market some of these news outlets as
Female tradies are getting mean comments on Facebook.
Make that one left wing.
Did you watch the project last night? Pining on about female tradies getting a browbeating on Facebook. I mean, come off it, just don't go online.
And let's make that one right wing.
So idiots that define themselves as left or right wing end up watching one of these news outlets, and then when it comes to election time, all of the major news outlets, both the quote-unquote left and the quote-unquote right, everyone from Waleed to Bolt, turn to their audience with the exact same conclusion: you should vote Liberal. Again, not because the media and the Liberal Party are right wing. You think these institutions have enough of a soul to follow an ideology? Maybe if you count an auctioneer for Ray White as a political messiah.
Okay, what's my agenda for today, guys?
Yeah, NAB here, Waleed. Can you just make it look like that bogus Royal Commission into banks was actually plausible so it seems like justice has been served?
Sold. Follow the money. These institutions rely solely on sponsorship from massive corporations, which, sorry, just because you own a plumbing business doesn't include you.
It will one day, bros.
And so obviously these institutions are going to push for changes in our society that benefit these corporations and not you. It's got nothing to do with ideology. To follow an ideology, you have to have principles. There's no room for principles in business. As the old adage goes, it's just business. There's no left or right wing bias in the media. Stop worrying about that. That's a mirage. It's all corporate bias. Now give me some money. Come on, I want to turn this channel into a corporation. The more researchers and writers I can hire, the more videos I can pump out, which means I can convince more people that at the very least, you do not want to be voting for the party that gets all of its principles from Coles. So in conclusion, the big take-home point of this video that I think was summed up best by Jerry Maguire: show me the money. And together, we can convince the world that Woolworths is better than Coles.
Please share and comment below.
Comment.